Story 25. Being a courier was supposed to be straightforward: pick up packages, drop them off, and repeat until the day was done. I liked the job because it gave me freedom, time on the road, and the occasional conversation with a grateful customer. But one day, everything changed with a single package that wasn't on my delivery list. I was at the warehouse, sorting through my deliveries, when I noticed a small box among the stacks of packages. It was nondescript, wrapped in plain brown paper, but what caught my eye was the label: no address, just my name written in bold, black letters. I checked with the dispatcher to see if it was a mistake, but he just shrugged and said it might be a personal delivery. Curiosity got the better of me, and I took the package with me as I went about my rounds. I thought about opening it right away, but I decided to wait until I had some time to myself. As I drove through the city, the box sat on the passenger seat, its presence a constant reminder of the unknown. By the end of the day, I found a quiet spot to park and opened the package. Inside was a stack of old photographs, each one yellowed with age. They showed people I didn't recognize, strangers in various settings, some in casual poses, others more formal. I sifted through the photos, trying to find a connection, but nothing made sense. Then I found the last photograph. It was more recent, the colors still vibrant, but what disturbed me was the date written on the back. It was today's date. And the image itself showed my face, clear as day, standing on a street corner I didn't recognize. I was looking away from the camera, seemingly unaware that the photo was being taken. My heart raced as I examined the photograph. How could this be? I hadn't been to that street corner, and yet there I was, captured in the image as if someone had been following me. I turned the photo over, hoping for more information, but there was nothing else, just the date and my face, hauntingly familiar yet entirely out of context. I felt a surge of fear, the realization that someone was watching me, tracking my movements without my knowledge. I checked my surroundings, expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows, but there was no one there. The city seemed normal, the traffic and pedestrians moving along as if nothing had happened. I called my supervisor, explaining what I'd found, but he dismissed it as a prank or a mix-up. "Someone's probably messing with you," he said, his voice casual. "Just forget about it and get back to work." But I couldn't forget about it. The photograph with my face and the current date was too unsettling to ignore. I decided to retrace my steps, driving back through my delivery route, hoping to find the street corner from the photograph. But the city felt different, the familiar streets now filled with shadows and hidden threats. I stopped at various locations, asking if anyone had seen someone taking photographs, but no one had any information. The sense of unease grew with each passing moment. The photograph, the old photographs of strangers, the package with no address at all felt like the beginning of something dark and dangerous. I knew I had to be careful, to watch my back, because someone out there was watching me. As I drove back to the warehouse, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Cars seemed to linger behind me, their headlights too close, their drivers hidden in the shadows. I checked my mirrors repeatedly, half expecting to see a familiar face. But there was nothing, just the relentless flow of traffic. When I returned to the warehouse, I handed the package to my supervisor, telling him I didn't want it anymore. He took it with a smirk, as if I were overreacting, but I didn't care. The photograph with my face, the stack of old photographs, it was too much, too eerie, like a warning of something yet to come. I knew I had to be vigilant, to stay on high alert, because the package with my name and the photograph with my face suggested that someone was watching, someone who knew more about me than I was comfortable with. The city had changed, the familiar streets now filled with unseen threats, and I had to be careful not to become the next photograph in someone else's collection. Story 26. The fire at the old hotel was devastating. Flames had engulfed the building, reducing what was once a grand landmark to a smoldering heap of rubble. I was part of the investigative team tasked with determining the cause of the fire and looking for any evidence of foul play. The hotel had been abandoned for years, but its history was rich, filled with stories of glamorous guests and scandalous events. The scene was chaotic, firefighters still dousing hot spots, smoke lingering in the air, and emergency personnel combing through the wreckage. As I walked through the charred remains, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss, the echoes of a bygone era now reduced to ashes. The hotel had been undergoing renovations when the fire broke out, and the construction materials had added fuel to the flames. The fire department suspected it was accidental, perhaps a spark from a welder's torch, but my instincts told me there was more to the story. The damage was extensive, the destruction too thorough to be a simple mishap. I made my way to the hotel's basement, where the fire had burned hottest. The walls were blackened, the floor covered with debris and broken glass. As I sifted through the rubble, I noticed a section of the floor that seemed hollow. I tapped it with my boot, and the sound confirmed my suspicion there was a hidden room beneath the floor. With the help of the firefighters, I cleared away the debris and found a trapdoor, partially hidden by fallen beams. It took some effort, but we pried it open, revealing a narrow staircase that led down into darkness. The air was thick with smoke, but I could feel a draft from below, suggesting there was more to the hidden room than met the eye. I descended the staircase, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The hidden room was small, but the walls were intact, untouched by the fire. What caught my attention, though, were the photographs, hundreds of them, covering every inch of the walls. They were neatly arranged, each one with a name, date, and time written beneath it. I examined the photographs, realizing that they were all of hotel guests from different eras. The faces were a mix of smiles and solemn expressions, the dates spanning decades. It was like a visual history of the hotel's visitors, a record of everyone who had stayed there. But what disturbed me most was the most recent photograph. It was dated with the exact time the fire had broken out. The photograph showed a group of people in the hotel's lobby, their expressions a mix of joy and unease. I recognized the setting. It was the same lobby that had been reduced to ashes. The names beneath the photograph were unfamiliar, but the date and time were unmistakable, matching the moment when the fire had begun to rage. I felt a surge of fear, the realization that this hidden room held a dark secret. Why would someone keep a record of hotel guests, and why would the most recent photograph match the fire start time? It was as if someone had planned it, orchestrated the fire to erase evidence, but evidence of what? I knew I had to report my findings to the rest of the team, but the sense of foreboding lingered. The hidden room, the photographs, the exact timing of the fire, it all pointed to something sinister, something that went beyond a simple accident. I climbed back up the staircase, my flashlight illuminating the rubble-strewn basement, and called for backup. The other investigators arrived quickly, their expressions grim as I showed them the hidden room and the photographs. They agreed that something was off, that the fire might not have been an accident after all. The evidence was collected, carefully documented, and the authorities were notified to continue the investigation. The old hotel, once a symbol of luxury and elegance, had become a crime scene, its secrets exposed by the fire. The hidden room, with its photographs and precise timing, suggested a dark conspiracy, one that involved the hotel's guests and perhaps even its staff. As I left the scene, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had uncovered something dangerous, something that might put me at risk. The fire was just the beginning, the spark that ignited a deeper mystery. I knew that I had to be cautious, to watch my back, because someone out there had orchestrated this disaster, and they wouldn't be pleased that their secret room had been discovered. The ashes held their secrets, and I was determined to find out the truth, no matter the cost. Story 27. Running the night shift at a hotel can be a lonely job. The hallways are empty, the lights dimmed, and the occasional creak from the old building can send shivers down your spine. It was usually quiet, with most guests asleep, leaving me to handle the front desk and any late-night arrivals. But one night, while I was tidying up the lobby, I found something that turned my quiet shift into a waking nightmare. The guest book was tucked away on a lower shelf, beneath a stack of brochures and outdated magazines. It was an old, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. I hadn't seen it before, but I assumed it was just an old registry, a relic from a time when hotels kept handwritten records of their guests. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the book to flip through the pages. At first, it seemed harmless, just a list of names and dates, each entry neatly written in cursive. The earliest entries were from decades ago, the names of people who had stayed at the hotel long before I started working there. But as I read through the list, I began to notice something unsettling. The names became increasingly familiar, not because I'd seen them in the hotel, but because I'd seen them in the local news. These were names of people who had disappeared or been found dead in the hotel over the years. I felt a chill run down my spine as I continued reading. The guest book wasn't just a list of hotel guests, it was a record of those who had met tragic ends within these walls. The dates next to the names corresponded to the times of their disappearances or deaths, and the more I read, the more I realized that these weren't isolated incidents. The hotel had a history, a dark and deadly history, and I was standing in the middle of it. I tried to dismiss it as a coincidence, but the evidence was too compelling. Each name in the book had a story, a tragic event that had made headlines, and here they were, neatly recorded in the guest book. The latest entries were from just a few years ago, suggesting that whatever had caused these disappearances and deaths was still happening. I knew I had to report what I had found, but I was hesitant to leave the front desk unattended. The hotel felt different now, the shadows darker, the silence more ominous. I decided to take the guest book with me and head to the security office, where I could call the police and report my discovery. As I made my way through the hotel, the hallways seemed longer, the familiar corners more sinister. Every step echoed, every creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. I passed by the rooms where some of the tragic events had occurred, the memory of the names in the guest book adding a weight to the air. When I reached the security office, I called the police, my voice shaking as I explained what I had found. The dispatcher seemed concerned, asking me to stay on the line and keep the guest book secure. I could hear the distant sound of sirens as the police made their way to the hotel, but the wait felt like an eternity. The police arrived quickly, their presence bringing a sense of urgency to the hotel. They took the guest book and began questioning me about its contents. I told them everything I knew about the names, the dates, and the connection to the disappearances and deaths. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that this was more than just a simple list of hotel guests. The investigation continued through the night, the hotel becoming a crime scene as the police examined the guest book and the rooms mentioned in its pages. The mood among the hotel staff shifted from calm to tense, everyone whispering about the guest book and its dark implications. The night shift, once a quiet and lonely job, had become a haunting experience. I knew I couldn't stay at the hotel, not after what I had found. The guest book, the long list of names, the connection to the tragedies, it was too much to ignore. I resigned from my position, leaving the hotel and its dark history behind. But the memory of the guest book with its eerie list of names would stay with me, a reminder that some places carry secrets that are better left uncovered.